1,300 feet beneath the Atlantic, a man's voice comes up through the water, calm, almost apologetic, experiencing minor difficulties. Have positive up angle, attempting to blow. It is the morning of the 10th of April, 1963, and the USS Thresher, the deepest diving submarine in the world, has 5 minutes left. 129 men are aboard, and the thing that is about to kill them was signed off, on paper, 5 months before she ever left the dock. 7:47 in the morning, 200 miles east of Cape Cod. Thresher meets the rescue ship Skylark and starts down. It is a test dive, the first since a 9-month overhaul. Go slowly to 1,300 feet, check in every 15 minutes, come home. 17 of the men aboard are not sailors. They are shipyard workers riding along to watch their own work hold. 7:52, 400 feet. The boat levels off and the crew walks the compartments, looking and listening. What they are listening for is water. Running through this hull are around 3,000 joints where pipe meets pipe, and many of the ones carrying seawater are not welded. They are brazed, bonded in effect with molten silver. At 400 feet, that is fine. 809, 650 feet, half test depth, and the sea is now pressing on every one of those joints with nearly 300 pounds on each square inch. 5 months earlier, at the shipyard, inspectors had ultrasound tested a sample of them. 145 joints out of 3,000. 14% came back substandard. Then the testing stopped. 825, 1,000 feet and still going down. Those joints are untested because the overhaul was running late, and a decision was taken to check only the ones time allowed and hands could easily reach. The rest went to sea unexamined. Meanwhile, the whole way back to the surface depends on banks of high-pressure air, held ready to blow the ballast tanks empty. Nobody has ever tested that air cold and wet. For the next half hour, nothing happens, and that is exactly what everyone wants. Thresher creeps downward in small steps, pausing, checking, calling Skylark on the underwater telephone every 15 minutes. On the surface, the escort logs each report. Everything is normal. The submarine is doing precisely what she was built to do, and she is roughly 10 minutes from the end of her life. 9:02. Thresher is at slow speed, making her final approach to 1,300 feet, deeper than any submarine had been designed to go. The hull is groaning the way steel does under 600 pounds to the square inch. That sound is normal. Every man aboard has heard it before. In 11 minutes, 3 separate design decisions are going to arrive at once. 9:09. Somewhere aft, in a space the Navy will never be able to name with certainty, a seawater joint lets go. At this depth, a leak is not a leak. It is a lance of water hard enough to cut, filling the compartment with freezing white fog, and it is spraying across an electrical switchboard that feeds the reactor's coolant pumps. 9:11. The salt water shorts the board, the coolant pumps slow, and the reactor does the one thing it has been designed to do to protect itself. It shuts down. In a matter of seconds, a 4,000-ton submarine at 1,300 feet loses her engines and becomes a falling object. And here the second decision arrives. Standard procedure after a reactor shutdown is to seal off the main steam system to protect the plant. It is a sound rule in every situation but this one. With the steam isolated, there is no quick way to get power back. Recovery takes many minutes. Thresher does not have many minutes. Commander Harvey has one option left, and it is the air. 9:13. On the underwater telephone, Skylark hears the voice of the captain, and it is astonishingly calm. Experiencing minor difficulties. Have positive up angle. Attempting to blow. Positive up angle means the bow is pointed at the surface. Attempting to blow means he is emptying the ballast tanks with everything he has. On paper, this should work. It works for about 30 seconds. High-pressure air expanding out of the flasks turns brutally cold, and the air in those flasks is not dry. The moisture in it freezes on the small strainers inside the reducing valves, and it freezes them shut. The blow becomes a shriek, then a trickle, then nothing. Later, the Navy will reproduce it exactly in a test on a sister boat. 9:14. On Skylark, Lieutenant Commander Hecker takes the handset and tries to give the answer that helps. He clears Thresher to surface. He tells her to blow. There is no reply, only noise. He asks again. He asks whether she has gone beyond test depth. Below him, the submarine has stopped rising and has begun to go down. 9:16. Another transmission comes up, broken almost beyond recognition. A minute later, one more. Out of it, the men on Skylark pull two words they will never stop hearing. Test depth. In front of them, they believe, is the word exceeding. That is the last thing anyone ever hears from the USS Thresher. 9:18. Sonar on Skylark records a sound the crew will describe as a muted, dull thud, like a compartment collapsing far away. Somewhere past 2,000 feet, the pressure finds the weakest frame, and the hull gives. What follows takes less than 1/10 of a second. Nobody aboard has time to know it is happening. 91 minutes after the dive began, it is over. On the surface, nothing changes. The sea is calm and empty. Skylark drops signal grenades into the water, the standard call to surface, and waits. She keeps calling for hours. By evening, the Navy has ships spread across the area, and what they eventually find is an oil slick, some cork insulation, and a few gloves floating in the swell. It takes until August for the bathyscaphe Trieste to reach the bottom, 8,400 feet down, and find her. There is no submarine there. Thresher lies in 6 main sections, scattered across a debris field on the seafloor, and the only thing down there still recognizable as a warship is a torn piece of her sail, with the number 593 still legible on the steel. 129 men were aboard. 112 of them were Navy. 17 were civilians from the shipyard, engineers and technicians who had spent the winter working on that boat and had come along to watch her perform. It remains the deadliest submarine accident in history. Not one body was ever recovered. The court of inquiry could not name the joint that failed because there was nothing left to examine. What it could describe was the chain, a brazed joint that let go, water on a switchboard, a reactor that protected itself, a rule that locked the steam away, and ice in the one system that could have pushed her back up. None of it was unforeseeable. 2.5 years earlier, a submarine called Barbel had suffered exactly this failure. A silver-brazed seawater joint giving way at depth, 18 tons of water into the boat in seconds. Barbel was shallow enough to survive it and get home. The lesson was written down. It was simply never turned into a rule that anyone had to follow. That changed in December of 1963. The Navy created SUBSAFE, a certification program built on a single, unglamorous idea. If a component can flood the boat, you must be able to prove on paper that it is sound. And if you cannot prove it, the submarine does not dive. Between 1915 and 1963, the United States lost 16 submarines to accidents. Since SUBSAFE, it has lost one. That one was Scorpion in 1968, and she had never been certified. Every American submarine that has dived since, and come back, has done so under rules written because 129 men went to sea on a routine test in 1963 and did not come back. 200 miles east of Cape Cod, 8,400 feet down, the Thresher is still there.